There we go. All right, we are live.
No. Yay! Just for people who are tuning in right on the money, we are going to wait a few minutes to give people time to get everything loaded up. But the link has been posted ahead of time, so hopefully y'all click the link a little before noon.
There are absolutely loads of people here already, so thank you all so much.
Yeah. Thank you for
right on the point of the hour.
Yes. Well, now it's 12:01, so all right. I might give it to 12:02, and then I'll.
That's fine. No, that's fine. Well, thank you, Felicity, for hosting this.
Very happy to host. Well, you're hosting on your YouTube page, but I'm
hosting. Why am I thanking you?
I'm just pouring the wine in the background. That's all I'm doing.
Told us it's 5 p.m. and we've been going for a while.
I'm the caterer, so
11 a.m. for me. So I've come from yoga
brunch. Oh, from yoga.
I wish.
brunch. All right.
We've come from Sunday lunch, and my son had got the first try in the rugby, so it's been a celebratory kind of afternoon. So.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
It's scoring he scored the first goal thing of his game. So he plays rugby, which is like American football without the padding. So
I'm like sort of familiar with the notion of rugby, but I'm not really a sport person, obviously.
I'm only a sport person for rugby, but we are very rugby oriented, and that's this family. So
that's great.
I think there should be more historical romance sports.
Historical romance sports. Well, there should be. Someone should do a rugby historical romance.
I did a rugby hero. It wasn't a rugby romance, but it was a rugby hero in one of my books. Jack Daw, he plays, and I inadvertently, complete accident, because I was writing at the tail end of the season when they often bring in new players from the academy. And I was writing the book, and I inadvertently picked up the name of one of the players, which I wouldn't have noticed, except he's gone on to be one of the major stars of English rugby. Oh my God.
You did that. You manifested that, I believe.
I absolutely manifested that. It's just like, whoops.
He should be thanking you for his career. I hope that he does.
I'm delighted to say I managed to spell his name wrong, because otherwise that would be really embarrassing. It was complete. So I came back. The book had already been published, because that publisher moved quite fast. And I came back to the season, and they were like, "And we bring on the newest star." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Well, I am going to turn the switch magically.
Okay.
But to continue the celebration, but we'll be celebrating KJ instead of KJ's son making the first in his rugby match. So briefly, I'm Felicity Niven. I'm an historical romance author, and I'm super excited to be moderating this discussion about Gothic romance between two of my favorite historical romance authors, KJ Charles, Alexandra Vasti. And for those of you watching, if you have a question at any point, pop it into the chat. I might try and get to it. I have lots of questions of my own, and we want to hear both KJ and Alexandra talk a lot about their books. But if I get a chance, I will try and get to the question. So let me just briefly say, KJ Charles is a best-selling author of numerous historical romances and fantasies, including The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen, which is part of the Doomsday Books, Magpie Lord, The Will Darling Adventures, etc., etc. But her latest, which is coming out this week, is All of Us Murderers. It's set in the Edwardian era. It's in a very scary house with ghosts. It's a spine-tingling horror mystery with a super hot second chance queer romance. And then we also have Alexandra Vasti, who is also a best-selling author of historical romances, including Ne'er-Do-Well, Earl Crush, The Halifax Hellions, and her latest, which was released less than a fortnight ago, is Ladies in Hating. It's set just after the Regency period. It's in a very scary house with ghosts. It's a delicious yet eerie and mysterious comedy with a super hot kind of second chance, definitely queer romance. So we have two fantastic authors with Gothic influenced novels featuring queer romances releasing at the same time. It seemed like it was a great totally no brain needed idea to have two of you guys get together and compare notes, especially since Alexandra's book, Ladies in Hating, is actually about two novelists who release novels about the same things at the same time.
I read it and I was just like, oh my God.
So I manifested this, I think, is actually what happened.
Yeah.
You're the one who did. You manifested this, absolutely.
Yeah.
Two lady novelists writing Gothic novels about the same thing.
Like the same house, even, right? Like we both, even days.
Yeah.
On the same, we both based it because when we last had a conversation, it transpired that we were both working off William Beckford, the actual Gothic novelist. And at the point where you're both writing queer romances with a second chance in a scary house based on William Beckford,
I told this story at every tour stop, like with the slightest encouragement. I was like, let me tell you. Let me tell you about KJ Charles and, you know, and our books based on the same house that came out at the same time, and how that is literally the plot of my book.
I have to say, I was just reading it and thinking, okay. Well, marvelous stuff. All right.
Well, because I do want to talk about William Beckford, but let me, before we get into nitty gritty, I'd love it. Each one of you just take a couple minutes and give us a little pitch about each one of your books. So we are kind of set in the universe of these two stories, and then we can do all kinds of the collision. So KJ, if you want to go first and tell us about All of Us Murderers.
Cool. Okay, so it's Edwardian and set in about 1904, and we've got our hero Zeb, who has an absolutely detestable family, as is so often the case in the Gothic. And Zeb is he's persuaded to come and visit his long lost cousin who owns this enormous Gothic pile, believing that he's going to be the only person there. He gets there and the entire family is there, and that this is the point that he discovers he can't leave, and also that his ex-lover, bitterly parted, is his cousin's secretary, and things only get worse from there. But the owner of the big scary house, their mutual grandfather, was actually a Gothic novelist who I based quite closely on William Beckford. So he writes these scary, creepy, kind of gross books, and has this, you know, actually a really horrible person. So my one is basically quite coming up directly against the legacy of the sort of the horrible Gothic novelist, because Beckford was a slaver and he was incredibly rich on the back of slavery, and it's this kind of very horrible legacy. But it's also having quite a lot of fun with all of the Gothic tropes and the ghosts and the strange footsteps and the flickering gaslight and the ladies in white dresses running from houses, because we love all those things.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a wonderfully scary book that still has everything else we expect from a KJ Charles book in it. Wonderful romance and feelings and hot sex and wonderful environment, and it's fantastic. So Alexandra, tell us about Ladies in Hating.
Okay. All right. So Ladies in Hating, it is the third book in the series, but you don't have to have read the other two to read it. It stands alone. And so we find out at the end of the first book in the series that Lady Georgiana, the daughter of an earl, is secretly a Gothic novelist. She's been writing these Gothic novels and kind of developing her career. So book 3 picks up 7 years later. I had to age her up because she was only 18 in the first book. We're gonna move on in historical time. So 7 years later, she's having this very successful career. She's able to support herself and her mom. But the fly in her ointment of her wonderful, successful career is this other Gothic novelist, this other anonymous woman who she becomes convinced is stealing her ideas and her plot in like a slightly unhinged way. This other woman, she goes by the pen name Lady Darling, and Georgiana's like, that's a stupid name. You know, she's like everything. They're bitch eating crackers, this other woman. So she decides she is going to unmask the other novelist. And so she finds herself, and this is not a spoiler, this is chapter 2, like hiding behind a bush in an alley, like waiting for this other woman to come to find out who she is. And the other woman walks down, she's got her hood up, and then she puts her hood back, and Georgiana recognizes her and realizes that not only does she already know this other anonymous Gothic novelist? She is like her first crush, her sexual awakening. She was the daughter of the butler on Georgiana's family estate. And she's like, never mind, I don't need to unmask you actually, but alas, it is too late. They're in the alley together. And they argue, and then they keep running into each other over and over as they're writing their books. And until they end up sort of trapped in a Gothic manor, sort of a haunted Gothic manor together, which is also based on Beckford's Folly, this house, Fonthill Abbey.
So you both have houses that William Beckford was associated with, kind of based in yours, but Alexandra, yours is the one he built. And KJ, you use the original house of the family. Is that correct?
I use a concept. So one of the key things about Beckford was, one of the many things about Beckford was that he was a total social pariah due to being one of the worst people who's ever walked the earth. Like if you did a list of unattractive characteristics, he ticks off about 8 of them. Like awful human being. So eventually, after he'd been basically exiled for being one of the worst people in the world and then sort of slunk back, he built this massive house, and then he had to build a gigantic wall around the massive house with about a 3-mile circumference just to keep people out, because like everyone hated him, and he just stayed in this horrendous, massive, gigantic house that he built on his own, apart from a small harem of sexy young men and one dinner party that he held one dinner party in Fonthill Abbey, and it was for Lord Nelson, Lady Hamilton, who was Lord Nelson's mistress, and Sir William Hamilton, who was Lady Hamilton's husband. So that must have been fun. They were relatives, but that's what we're talking about in terms of social awkwardness and isolation. All of that is very much taken from reality.
Wow. What was, for both of you, what was the beginning kernel of these stories? Was there something that you said, ooh, that's the thing that I want to go towards if I'm going to feature Gothic novelists as characters, or if I'm going to have a Gothic setting? What was the initial thing?
So for me, I had to come up with the ideas for these novels kind of very quickly. So I had written the first one, and that was the first book that I ever tried to get published. And my agent said, when we're meeting with editors, they might, if they're interested in giving you like a 2-book contract or a 3-book contract, they're going to want to know what these other books are about. So like, come up with some ideas. And I said, okay. Sure, no problem. I can come up with some ideas. And then the book sold very quickly. I had to have these ideas. I really had like not anticipated that. So I came up with these like little mini pitches for the other books. So book 2 in the series, the pitch was Regency catfishing revenge road trip was how I pitched it. And book 3 was Sapphic rival Gothic novelists. And that was the whole pitch. And then I had to kind of, build this book around Sapphic rival Gothic, like 4 words that I had posed. I knew there were going to be I knew it was going to be like a comic Gothic, because like that's just the kind of writer I am. I like to write comedy, and it's just how my voice kind of comes out in writing, has always been kind of with comedy and hijinks and romps. But what I learned, so I knew of Northanger Abbey, right? And I was kind of very inspired by Northanger Abbey, which is Jane Austen's kind of like comic or satirical take on the Gothic. So I knew I was going to kind of do something like that, where I incorporated a lot of Gothic tropes, but maybe tried to have a lot of fun and play with them. What I learned was that like Austen did not invent this. She's actually like writing in a tradition of comic Gothics that was like an existing tradition in the period. So I was very delighted to find that out.
People were taking the piss from the minute it was invented.
Exactly, yes. There's one, my favorite like title of one is, it's from 1798, and it's called more ghosts with an exclamation mark. Yeah, so this one is, I don't know, more lesbians is
Excellent.
Yeah.
No, well, for mine, so I basically I'm on a 3-book contract, but it was a 3-book any book. What have you got for us? Kind of contract. And my editor came back and said, "You want to do a Gothic?" And to which my answer is obviously yes, if I can have a cover that looks really Gothic. And actually, what
about this
cover. That is a giant poster directly behind me. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the publisher did that. I'm very impressed. But what I thought was, so basically, like, approximately, roughly, statistically, 98% of later Gothic novels are about the sexy master of the scary house, right? It's basically, that's it, it's the sexy master of the scary house. Occasionally the sexy mistress of the scary house, but it's always the sexy owner of the scary. And I actually thought, you know what, I want to do this where it's not the master of the house. I just, and it kind of bounced off there, really. I was just basically, my book is a Gothic novel in which the master of the house is neither sexy nor the love interest, and the woman in the white dress running from the house is not the heroine. And I thought, what on earth happens to the Gothic novel if you do those two things? And then I found out.
Well, I am not super familiar with Gothic. I did do some reading. I love the pressy about Gothic novels you have on your website, KJ. So anyone who's not familiar with Gothic novels, I suggest you go look at KJ's blog post about that. It's fantastic. But just if you guys wouldn't mind giving us a little education about Gothic novels and the tropes that you love in them, or the tropes that you feel inescapable with Gothic novels, and whether you like them or not. Do you like Gothic novels?
Well, so there are things like, obviously you've got tropes, but the heart of the Gothic novel is transgression, right? It's always about people transgressing in some way, and usually trying to hide it and having to conceal it. That's usually within the family, because the family is always the locus of things going terribly wrong and hiding things and secrets. And then the trappings around that have been there right from the beginning. The Castle of Otranto, which is the first Gothic novel, you've got family, you've got warped sort of religion and obsession, you've got marriages that oughtn't be happening, and sexual desire that oughtn't be happening and that isn't allowed. And you've got a big scary house. You've got to have a big scary house. You've got someone imprisoned in a big scary house, because domestic imprisonment. So that's why Jane Eyre is basically a Gothic novel, because it's domestic imprisonment. That is why Great Expectations is a Gothic novel, because Miss Havisham is the ultimate sort of But it's all about the heart of the Gothic. So you've got trappings like the woman in the white dress running from the scary house and so on, and the flickering gaslight. But the heart of it is absolutely this kind of feverish, closed circle of domestic wrongdoing and transgression. That's certainly how I feel it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a slave owner then is a perfect ancestor.
I mean, ancestral crimes is a huge thing. So again, Castle of Otranto, first ever Gothic novel, is literally all about punishment for your ancestral crimes. Right. And that is very much All of Us Murderers. I mean, that's the title. Coming to terms with the fact that your family's wealth, your family's status is all built on, frankly, the fact that your very near relatives were disgusting, monstrous people, and actually facing up to that. But that's in, like, most Gothic novels, looking back and actually coming to terms with the horrendousness that is very close to you that you didn't realize was there.
Yeah, that's definitely in Ladies in Hating as well, is coming to terms with the wrongdoings of your family. I feel that I just had a lot of fun looking at what are some of the common characteristics, and I got to sort of reference them all in every possible way because I have like 2 Gothic novelists as my 2 heroines, so they have like all of their books, like I had to invent so many fictional Gothic novels, and like
making up Gothic novels is the best bit. I made up a whole bunch of mine.
Oh, that's right. You have this too.
Titling them. I hate coming up with titles at all. It's not either I come up with one and I'm like, great, that's the title, or it's like this horrible nightmare. There's no in between with that. And I had to title like, I think I titled like 8 or so for each of my novelists. And then even worse, the whole premise is that their books are very similar. So then I had to give them these similar titles that I had to remember who was whose. And I don't know if I messed it up. I just don't tell me. I
thought they were terrific. I thought they were night perfect. Yes. I really enjoyed them, and I love the quotes and so on because all of that just worked really well. Because it's a fine line, isn't it, with Gothic? So on the one hand, like you say, people have been taking the mickey out of Gothic from the moment people started writing the Gothic. But on the other hand, the Gothic is this sort of ridiculous, overblown, overdramatic, melodramatic genre. But it's also about really serious things treated in this mad way. And all of it is like... you meant the blog post I did, which was sort of analysing various kinds of the Gothic very briefly. But one of them, like there's Imperial Gothic. And if you actually want to know what was going through the heads of people, British people watching their empire fall apart, you actually want to read some Gothic novels written at the time, because they're writing about strange, mysterious, like gender fluid beetle things attacking England in an Egyptological way, and it's all completely mad. But actually, what it's about is this massive anxiety at the end of empire, and a lot of Gothic is treating this. The feelings are very serious, even if the trappings are very stupid. Is what I'm getting at. Yeah. So I think that makes it perfect for romance.
What my dissertation is about. You just kind of summed up my dissertation for my.
Oh my goodness! More coincidences.
It is. It's
about. Well, I studied the Gothic as well quite heavily. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. My dissertation, which remains, sort of mostly in my computer, is about decrepit houses and kind of the relationship between decrepit houses in British literature and the end of the British Empire. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So have you read The Beetle or
No.
No, you haven't. Oh my God, you've got to read The Beetle.
Is about like 1940s, 1950s. So
okay.
Yeah. So we're like the end of Empire.
Right. No, but you should, if you're interested, you should read The Beetle, because that's Richard Marsh, and it came out the same year as Dracula, sold more copies, and it is absolutely deeply and profoundly about the end of empire. Well, also the first half is just this unbelievably sweaty thing. It's all about gender transgression and sexuality, and it's amazing. The second half falls apart, but the first half is just one of the best things you've ever read.
And I do think that you warn people, KJ, that the cover that you display, which looks like a 1950s horror movie cover with a beetle attacking a woman, that it has nothing to do with the book.
Doesn't happen, no. That's one of those Anne of Green Gables covers when you get the sort of sultry, sexy, busty redhead. This has got just a large beetle. It's not about large beetles at all, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. Well, good to know.
That's great. So, you mentioned the trappings being stupid of things, and I hadn't thought of the trappings as being stupid, but kind of more hyperbolic.
Yeah.
Well, that too.
Yeah, and super dramatic, and now you've turned me to thinking about our day and age, and thinking about whether we will see a rise in Gothic horror in the United States.
We are, though. We absolutely are. There's so much Gothic coming out at the moment. And if you look at someone like Sylvia Moreno Garcia, who's writing like some fantastic Gothic, there's Pueblo Hacho, something like that. She did a book about a spider goddess, which is a sapphic spider goddess, big house sort of murder romance. Absolutely tremendous. There's some amazing Gothic writing going on at the moment, and I'm absolutely sure it's anxiety in action. like the Gothic is a response to anxiety, basically, isn't it? You know, whenever you've got a real anxiety level, you get a spike in the Gothic, and you know, we're looking at the end of the American hegemony, the end of America probably, and you know, there is an awful lot of anxiety just manifesting wildly, and it does not surprise me that Gothic horror romance is coming up. Apparently they're calling it horror-mance, which I'm really sad about, but
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is definitely a like Gothic renaissance in publishing right now, and there's so much interest in horror. I mean, I remember not even that long ago they're like, oh, horror's dead, you know, you can't sell horror. Now it's like really huge.
It was massive in the 1980s when we were all convinced we were about to die because of because you know, Reagan, Cold War, whatever. And then it died for about 20 years when it was the end of history and everything was fine, and now it's back with a vengeance. I mean, it is basically, it's like taking the psychological temperature of the nation, or you know, or the reading world. I feel, I really do feel that you can track it. It's like hemlines. You know how at the beginning of the 20th century, if the hemlines went up, basically, you could track the national mood pretty much according to hemlines. I think you can do it according to Gothic novels.
Well, I wanted to ask you both what's it like to write queer romance in 2025? Because KJ, you've been writing it for a while, and to see if there's been any difference. And Alexandra, you've written MF romances with some queer characters in those, but this is a sapphic romance, and wondered if you'd felt any difference in the reception. You know, I'm not trying to read into or feed you if you haven't felt anything, but do you have any feelings about it?
I'm glad that publishers are still buying. I'll be very, very worried when publishers, the larger publishers, stop. They don't seem to be stopping at the moment. I would be extremely frightened when, here's hoping not. But at the moment, publishers are still putting their money behind it, which is a good sign. But yeah, I mean, we can all see what's going on in the world around us, so it's
I agree with you. The publishers are still buying. My next series that's coming out, my next historical series, is going to be similar in that there are two you know, MF romances and then one sapphic. I can say that of my 3 books in this series, this is the only one that did not get a national order from Barnes and Noble.
You don't even surprise me slightly. I mean, that's been the case with sapphic romance, like it always has been. I mean, I mean, infuriating.
The audience is there. I mean, this book,
I know,
it's already gotten into a second printing, and it came out like it hasn't even been.
It hasn't been 12 days.
No, and it's obviously done amazingly, and it's been in the bestseller charts and everything. And there is absolutely an audience, and but I do think that is that is an ongoing thing with FF romance, which may or may not be related to the whole horrible climate that's on out there, because it has just been this ongoing. You know, my sapphic novel is the one that has struggled the most, even though it's paired with a really successful one. It's annoying, is what it is. It's really annoying.
Is that proper English?
Yeah, proper English.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just to switch a little bit, let's go to something a little more positive, and have you tell me, what was your favorite bit to write or to research in your books?
Ooh, Alex?
Okay. So my book is, I mean, it's pink, you know, it's like what it looks like. It is what it says on the tin. It's nice. It's not like too spooky. And so I really like to write about love. And I really, not just romantic love, but like all the different types of love. So a lot of my books are going to have like that ride or die friend crew. And this one is really about like family love. And it's a lot, sort of, as you were saying, KJ, about coming to terms with sort of the horrors of your past and your family's past, and moving forward and moving beyond that, and that growth arc. So there's a lot of family coming together at the end, and that was my favorite part to write. And I really was very inspired by okay, so we were talking about Walpole, right? Horace Walpole, who wrote The Castle of Otranto, which is the first Gothic novel, sort of instantiates the genre in English. And so Walpole, I had originally wanted to base the house on his house, which is this also sort of delightful Gothic house. But what I ended up doing it on Fonthill Abbey because Fonthill Abbey was too juicy and delicious to not. But so Walpole, when he dies, he leaves his property. He leaves a home on his property to Anne Seymour Damer, who is this very famous Regency lesbian, super famous. If you wanted to know if someone was lesbian, you might ask, do you visit Mrs. Damer? Wait, he's synonymous with the sexuality in the Regency. So he leaves the house to Anne Seymour Damer because it is next door to her girlfriend's house. Her girlfriend, Mary Berry, they had been in this relationship for a long time. And I was just very inspired by this idea of kind of not that it's a new concept, but just this history, I guess, of queer families and queer elders kind of supporting the next generation. That was something that I really wanted to capture and embody in my pink sparkly Gothic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, mine is quite a lot more negatives. No, actually, though, having said that, I think the things I most enjoyed writing are because it's an MM romance, and it's a book about this man who's the grandfather, who's a patriarch, who is basically you've got this horribly abusive family situation where he's abusing other people on the plantations, and he's abusing his wives, and then you've got the sort of family abuse rippling down, and it's all men. It's largely men abusing women, and I just wrote a couple of scenes with women fighting, or women sort of taking charge, and both of them felt quite important. There's one with a woman who's basically a villain of the piece, but she gets an opportunity where you can see that she doesn't have to be a villain, and she makes her choices, and that felt quite important to write as well, because otherwise it can be quite a male dominated. And the Gothic was a hugely female-dominated genre from the beginning. Women have always been crucial to it, and women writers have been key all the way along. So just making sure the women had their place, and it turns out they're mostly running the show, in fact, but behind the scenes, which is always fun. So I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed sort of structuring it in. My actual favorite thing about the whole experience was the cover, which again I'm just going to focus on that, because I said to the publisher I want a 1970s Gothic cover, thinking that you get the usual thing with the publisher, which is you say I want this, I want that, and then what you get is some awful Clint shot that doesn't bear any resemblance to your book, and you're like, okay, and then I said I want a 1970s Gothic cover, and they gave me a 1970s Gothic cover. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I was just like, oh my god,
I love it.
I also had a very lovely experience with the cover of this book. I said I want it to look Gothic but pink. I was I wanted to really convey what you're getting, which is that, and they really did it. I mean, it has this little raven and little sort of
it's adorable.
Yeah, it's right. I felt like they really you can look at this and you know what you're getting.
Right, which is a delicate line to walk. So I think that they hit the nail on the head.
The title was a nightmare. I think they made me come up with 80 titles, and they were any of it. I kept sending. They were like, no, come up with more. And finally, I was like, I can't. I was like, I told my agent, I was like, there's nothing left. The tank is
I've done all the words in English. That's it. There's no more words left.
Exactly. And so my agent, she had been sort of quietly letting all these emails go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And she finally stepped in. She was like, I think Ladies in Hating of all these ones is clearly the best. She's like, and everyone was like, okay. And everyone just fell in line.
We'll take it. Great.
I emailed her and said, "You are very good at your job."
Settling the question. But I wanted to say, KJ, I felt like there's a real relationship between what Alex was saying with the found family and my imagination that even extends beyond the epilogue that you wrote about Zeb and Gideon. And I imagined him finding a found family with the nieces who love his stories. And
Yeah.
so because at its basis, romance is really about fun, who you choose, so.
Yeah, no, I think it was quite interesting to do because I really wanted the compass of All of Us Murderers to be literally from the moment Zeb walks into the gate to the moment he leaves, and that's it. I didn't want to have any plot or action going on outside that. It was a very closed circle kind of book,
right?
Which is why I wrote an epilogue, which I don't normally do. I think I've done that like twice before in my entire career of coming up to 40 novels. I've done 2 epilogues before, but I needed to finish it off, but I also needed it to just stop at the point where the gates shut again. So an epilogue to sort of indicate that everything did indeed work out happily ever after seemed like the right way to handle it. And it proves to be a really good way of like dealing with a whole bunch of plot stuff. So I might try that again.
Settles questions about who's pulling whose strings. And...
Yeah, exactly. Tick, 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 tick. Right, dealt with.
Good. Well, I know you guys are, the writer is the puppeteer, so they don't necessarily feel what the reader feels. But what do you feel are the scariest bits in your book?
Spiders. Really hate spiders. Majored on spiders throughout the book because I had a feeling that if I did enough on spiders, then it ought to scare the crap out of the reader, because it certainly scares the crap out of me. I really hate them. So yeah, I did. Well, there's imprisonment as well. Being in prison, my husband's got a real thing. He does not like small dark spaces.
Yes, that's that moment in that where there's a possibility of that in your book.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anymore.
Do not like.
I was like, no!
But also, the absolutely classic. So there's one of the sort of late Georgian Gothic novels is Melmoth the Wanderer, which is fab. I mean, that's so when Oscar Wilde went into exile, he called himself Sebastian Melmoth, and he named himself after Melmoth the Wanderer. So it's a very, very crucial Gothic text. Very queer, very weird, very warped, and it's a sort of Flying Dutchman kind of story. And but it being Gothic, it's about 17 stories all portmanteaued together, but it's got a really major sequence of person being shut in very small space with horrible, scary, creepy things and damp and creepy things and amphibians, which sticks in the mind. I mean, I was reading it. I studied the Gothic novels at college, and I recall reading it in my second year room and scaring myself to the point where I had to go and bang on other people's doors and find somebody else who was up because I was terrified. So yeah, that was the close imprisonment aspect of the Gothic is definitely one I decided to lean into because it's terrifying.
Yeah. How about you, Alex? What do you think is the
I don't know. Are there scary parts in this book?
Yes. Okay. When they discover they're closed in this manner.
They're hard to imagine. Classic, yes.
But also there's a scene in that destroyed library in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Because Georgiana.
I don't know. I love scary books. I love horror. But to me, like this book, I was going for like a 2 out of 10 in terms of like scary. Like I really didn't want.
It's got a nice flow where it sort of builds up and you think, oh my God, is this a point where it turns into, and then no.
and then they kiss instead. Right. No, like there's
exactly.
And there's so in Castle of Otranto, there's like passages through the secret passages through the walls.
Secret passages.
I need some secret passages. And so I have like a point where like Georgiana is like trapped in the secret passage with like the bats, but instead of like doing it from her perspective, I like did it from Kat's perspective, our other heroine, and she comes up and she sees like Georgiana's feet just like sticking out of the, like that was my approach. I was like, let me take these scary things and like kind of make like play with them.
And there's a cute dog involved in that scene.
Dog. I know, dog is a menace.
Cute dogs always undercut the
right.
Well, but I think that's one of the things that's quite fun, and I think we were kind of both again doing the same thing. There is when you've got someone who's sitting there going, "This is a Gothic trope. I know it's a Gothic trope, but I'm having nothing to do with it. Thank you."
Exactly.
Yes. Exactly. I turn away from it. I loved writing my like spooky housekeeper. And I named her. I've now forgotten their names. Graves is her name. And then there's like this mysterious, the cook who's Mort, and I don't know. I thought that was quite comical. And the character's like, surely not. Like that name is too ridiculous.
Nothing is too on the nose for Gothic novels. Absolutely nothing. Right. Absolutely. Everyone's got to be called something along the lines of Mort and death and Graves and putrefaction and stuff. It's just putrefaction.
And of course, the Gothic novelists comment on that, Alex, and so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I'm so sorry. Like I think my internet went out. What did you say?
Oh, I just said, well, and of course your Gothic novelists are the exact right people to notice. These names are too appropriate for this creepy house. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. Any favorite characters that you wrote in these?
The dog.
I actually like writing the villains a lot because I like leaning in. I like seeing it from their point of view, and it's also you can enjoy people being absolutely ridiculous. So I've got a couple of very, very posturing relatives of the kind of the worst kind of smug men, basically 2 different iterations of awful smug man. So I did enjoy leaning into writing them, especially because nothing good was going to happen to them.
Yes.
I think that my recent discovery is how much I like writing like a charming, hot, flirty character. I think like it's quite. So one of my heroines, Georgiana, is sort of closed off. It's kind of sad. So I wanted to pair her with someone who's very outgoing and joyful, and anyway, and I made her very, very flirty and sexy, and all that. So I really loved writing that. In my book that comes out next summer, I also wrote like a hot, charming, flirty man. And I was like, man, this is so fun to write. Because, I don't know about you, but for me, like rarely in life have I ever had like the perfect, thing. But
it's wonderful, isn't it? And you're writing someone and they've got this just amazing banter, snap, snap, snap. And people, it's so witty, it's so great. And like, it took me 6 hours to do these 5 lines. Of this amazing bants.
No, but it was so fun to like inhabit this like sort of charming, like always kind of knowing the right thing to say or having the right response. It was really delightful. It made me wish that I was a hot, charming man.
Or sapphic Gothic novelist.
Right. Yes. Right. I was thinking about my next book. Yes.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah. I want to go back to houses. And it's interesting to me that setting is such an important part of the genre, and wanted to sort of explore that. I don't know. I mean, I know that strange castle in Otranto, and it's in the title, and there are those weird passages. But then there's the chapel. Like, I'm like, it's not just in the castle. The chapel is separate from the castle. I got the idea.
Yeah, the house and the religion. But what you've literally identified is house and religion, the family and the church, which are, two huge locuses of trauma if you're European, basically, or a lot of other people. But looking at the origins of the Gothic. But but the house, the house, especially when you're looking at an aristocratic house, that's not just a home; it's a locus of power, isn't it? It's literally a powerhouse. It's where things come from. It's the Lord lives here. It's a fortress. It's where the orders come out. It's where you protect, and it's hugely psychologically impactful. There's a wonderful book, it goes back way too far, but there's a wonderful book by Mark Morris called Castles, which was completely revelatory to me as a British person, because he pointed out that Anglo-Saxon times, they built in wood. And when the Normans came over, the Normans invaded and they built in stone. And they built these castles and they spread these castles all over. And he said the way you need to look at this is it's like the Death Star, basically. Each castle was a Death Star in terms of advanced technology and power and this huge, scary structure. And I think you can actually carry that forward. So, the big, scary, aristocratic powerhouse is it's frightening to the people who live in it, but it is by its nature a frightening thing. And I think that's what a lot of the Gothic is, the early Gothic. So now we do the houses, like my house is just sort of jumped up rich guy's house. He's not a local power, but the sort of psychological impact of the big house on the people around it is still remains. I mean, we've got in this country, we've got 1,000 years of being oppressed by the man in the big house. So it's quite a huge thing, actually, if you sort of look at the impacts of it. I mean, I grew up in a town with one of the oldest castles in Britain. It was just there, you just went if you wanted to, nip out in the evening, go for a spliff, you went down to the Berkhamsted Castle kind of thing. But it was completely normal to us that there was a 1,000-year-old castle that we would just drink vodka on the hill kind of thing. And I think it does shape you a little bit, thinking about the prevalence of these big oppressive things. And I don't think you've got the same thing in America, but certainly in the South you've got the plantation houses, which is a different kind of massive located trauma. But I think you've probably got a commonality, and of course the Southern Gothic is all about that, isn't it?
Yes.
So
yeah.
We definitely have a tradition of that. Yeah, in my book, it's similar in that the Gothic house that they go in and inhabit is, like similarly, a commoner who becomes very rich and builds this sort of special estate for his family, and it has its own kind of hidden stories and hidden secrets. But the house, so my book is not all set in that house. Like it's actually only like maybe a third or so of the book really in that house, in that setting. And it's because the house where the trauma is not that house. It's the house that Georgiana grew up in. So she has, our classic kind of Gothic bad dad, sort of feature of historical romance. And that is the house where she met the other heroine, Kat, for the first time. And her father does a lot of terrible things to her family, to Kat's family. I didn't set it in that house because that was not the book I wanted to write. Like that would be an actual horror.
That'd be heavily traumatic. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I did want her to go back to that house. So she goes back to the house and she sees, her dad has died. I didn't even want to write him. He's just dead.
Yes.
He's not there. He's not in the. And her brother has now come into the ownership, and they've changed it. It looks different. She gets there, she realizes they've put in new windows and the furniture is different, and it's not the same, terrible, confining, constricting, sort of awful, traumatic place that it was. So that was kind of how I tackled that.
That's super interesting, because you have effectively used the house as an externalized version of the family. You've shown that the house has changed, the house has been made new, the house has let the light in, and that just works so well throughout the entire Gothic. The house is an expression of the family. And I mean, I really thought that the way you did that with the sort of background of the Earl worked really well. But I completely agree. It would have been just a completely different book if you had actually tried to go back and confront that instead of just. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, well, what does it mean that both of you, well, because you were using Beckford, both of you have houses that are fakes?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Right? I mean, if it's an expression of the family, what does it mean that the house is
That's really interesting.
Just to the people watching, both of the houses in the haunted houses in both books are pastiche. They're meant to be fake.
Yeah. So mine is built in about 1830, pretending that it was built in about 1600 kind of thing. You know, which is a very popular thing to do.
Yes, right. That's the historical reality. Was like people were very into the Gothic, and they're like, let me make. That's like the neo-Gothic is like, let's put on all of these sort of Gothic trappings.
And Alex, I got it from you that it was almost like a Disneyland. I mean, that's the feeling I got.
Yeah.
They were going to make it into this thing that people were going to come see and see the fake castle.
And they were creating their own histories. So in the garden of my Gothic house, there's a whole lot of they've got a folly garden. So they've got a Stone Age smithy and an Egyptian pyramid and a Japanese temple and so on, and a little Stonehenge, all of which are obviously complete nonsense that they've just made up. But it's absolutely based on what people used to do. They would just have a folly garden with all of these things in and go, hey, look at all this historical stuff I just built. It's absolutely so amazingly I have stayed in one of these the Landmark Trust, which allows you to go and stay in Beckford's last remaining building. You can go and stay in an old folly garden, and they've actually turned one of the follies into a habitable room, and you can actually go and stay there for a weekend. Absolutely marvelous. That's in Hackford in North Yorkshire. But yeah, it's the whole pastiche pretense. And so what they did in Hackford was they took a completely standard bit of Yorkshire. I mean, that's obviously very beautiful because it's Yorkshire, but they basically re-engineered the whole thing to become something out of a mad Gothic painting. So you've got cliffs, and they changed the course of the river, so you had a plunging waterfall, which is completely artificial. They built a castle, and then like a ruined castle, so that you're walking around going, this is amazing, this castle that's completely, hang on, how did they ever build this? Because there's no ground for it to be. What's going on? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it all looks very plausible. And then you wander around the grounds and you see these sort of sensational ruins, and it's all romantic with a capital R. And it was absolutely, I mean, it was a psychosis, frankly, but this is what rich people were spending their money on, just creating this false history.
That's exactly, I think, what I sort of wanted to do as well. There was something so psychotic, like this idea of Beckford's house. We have not talked about the fact that this house kept falling down. Like that was
fell down within 6 weeks, was it the first one?
Well, I think yes, and repeat it. And like the dinner party that you mentioned, it fell down like the next day, like after they got it up in time to have the dinner party, and then it just kept falling. And
he built the tallest spire in Europe, but only for about 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's why you can't stay in it, now, because it just kept falling. And they were sort of telling him it's not going to last, and he didn't really care. I mean, there's something sort of very he had so much money that he could just pay to kind of create this thing, but it was always always ephemeral. There was no
and he filled it with antiques, and it was unbelievably lush and beautiful, and just fell down.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like the man's a walking metaphor, honestly.
Exactly. It was the man was overdetermined. I know. I love that so much. But I sort of, in mine, I sort of had this idea that they were just weird little emo freaks, and that they were I love bones and skulls and thorns and black roses, and we're just gonna decorate the house with them, because I mean that's kind of the vibe. If you wanted to build, if you're Walpole and you love the Gothic and you can afford it, you can just put whatever you want.
And if you've been on your grand tour and you've been to somewhere like Naples and you've seen all these amazing buildings with just carved skulls, and then you've been to an ossuary, and you've actually seen the amount of you know, the Gothic, European Gothic is super Catholic, and the Catholics really into their skulls and ossuaries and memento mori everywhere. And then people are just channeling that, and it's this amazing decoration that you've got a clock made out of bones, like human bones, not just messing about here, human bones. They've got that in it's in one of the ossuaries in Czechoslovakia.
Oh my goodness!
What I'm talking about, Czech, but yeah, the Czech Republic. They've got a I'm so old. Czech Republic. They've got a literal clock made of human bones. Just because they could, because they had all of these bones. You know the story. Go to the catacombs in Paris, and it's, you know, you're just walking through going, this is a normal thing to have underneath your city, you know, just a rows, serried ranks of skulls. And people were channeling, you know, they went on their grand tour and they saw these things, and they came back and went, you know, I've got some amazing decorating tips.
Right.
Let's do it. Let's make our haunted house.
Exactly.
So we are almost at the end. So I'm
going to put a couple of these comments up just because I thought that they were so delightful. Here's one that I thought was
I have read that book. I have read that book. Yes, and the Melmoth is absolutely a reference, because Melmoth the Wanderer, he's it's
And then I also wanted to put up this
questions,
comment as well, because I thought this was
that's amazing. Oh, that's really cool.
That is very cool.
Really cool.
That is super cool.
And I wanted to also have you guys tell us what's coming up next for you after the Gothic Renaissance of the fall of 2025.
Well, you go first.
No, oh no, we've alas.
Go on.
Okay, all right. So I have I'm not totally leaving my little Gothic era. I have a vampire book coming out. I don't have a pub date yet, but tentatively next fall. It is a contemporary vampire romance about a vampire human dating app. So if you're into your Sid, obviously it's quite ridiculous, but it's a murder mystery. So there's a dead body, and they have to figure out what's going on there with their app.
What's the name of the app, Alex?
The app is called Stoker, Stokr. I know that's broken a bit.
Nice.
And then so I've got that in the fall. Over the summer, I have another historical coming out, and that is called Scandal of the Summer, and it is so this is my smuggling and Beatles book that we talked about. It's the premise is a trio of desperate heiresses forge an invitation to a country house and accidentally infiltrate a band of smugglers. So
brilliant.
That's the premise of that one next summer.
Yeah.
I look forward.
Wonderful.
So my next is in April, and that's called How to Fake It in Society, and that's with Tor, and it's a Regency about a guy who accidentally marries an unbelievably rich woman on her deathbed and finds himself, having been a guy who just makes paints and has a small shop, suddenly he's one of the richest men in London, and obviously he's immediately attracts beggars and scammers and con artists, including the other hero who basically comes in to try and take all of his money. So that all goes terribly wrong in lots of amusing ways. So it's quite lighthearted and a bit more I was just having Regency fun with that one.
I'm so excited.
And then after that, I'm writing a very sort of horror adjacent occult fantasy, which is going to be coming out in 2027, but that's quite serious. But so it's nice to have the bit of fun thing first before we all get into massive murder levels.
The froth before the blood.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my 2026 also. Quite frothy in the summer, and then blood.
Lots of
blood. Doom.
I love it. This has been so fun. Thank you both so much for agreeing to get together and talk about your books together. It was really fantastic, and thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who watched. And I believe this will be available. People will be able to watch it in the future. Is that right? Yes. Wonderful. Good.
Cool.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Lovely to see you.
Yay.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for